have to say, when I first read the concept for this show, I found it absolutely hilarious. And then when I watched it, it was even funnier than that.
Oh, excellent.
Success. We nailed
Excellent.
But I have to ask, how did you get the concept for this show? Why Murphy's Law?
Well, we wanted a show that would be actually funnier than absolutely hilarious.
Yes, that was our goal.
So that's we were working together on Phineas and Ferb, and we were finishing that show and looking what we should do after that. And
I had thought Long Holiday.
Yes, I had thought that too, but I had been drawing some stuff for another pitch, and I had this secondary character that I had drawn that was sort of a caricature of a friend of ours, and he's super positive. So I just had this voice in my head of this super positive kid, and every time I looked at the drawing, I always thought, I think this kid should have his own show. I feel like this is the lead character of an entirely different show, but I don't know what that show is yet. And I went into Swampy and I showed him the drawing. So, you know, this character that I put into this, and he said, you see, I always felt like that character should have his own show. And I was like, yes, we should do it together. What should it be? And he's like, well, what do you got? I was like, I just think of him as super positive. And he's like, what if he's positive in the face of everything going wrong? And I was like, yes, like Murphy's Law. He could be Milo Murphy. He could be the great grandson. And we just sort of threw everything together, and suddenly it was like, oh, then you get a show that gets all this physical comedy out of things going wrong all the time, where Phineas was sort of all about
everything going right for him. This is the kind of the natural counterpart to.
Yeah.
It's all positivity.
Yeah, exactly.
For different reasons.
Yeah, so it's optimism and positivity in the face of enormous odds, and it also gives a that's sort of the takeaway we want kids to have, is that when things go wrong in your life, that's not the end of things. That's not something to really be upset about. That's just an obstacle.
Life's going to throw things at you.
Yeah,
you just got to consider it an adventure.
Did you speak to any members of Captain Edward Murphy's family to find out if unluckiness does?
We did not.
Yes.
We did almost no research
yes.
because we're animators.
We're slackers.
Yeah, pretty much. We're lazy.
We're lazy. So I'm not even sure if Edward Murphy's family is still around. Do we?
I don't know. We've done no research. We have no research.
You're the second person to ask us that, and I was like, maybe we should. Maybe we should call them up. But Weird Al, who does the voice of Milo, was going through his garage, and he found a poster that he had in his dorm room in college. That's a Murphy's Law poster that explains all the Murphy's Law, the postulates of Murphy's Law. And he said it was in his dorm room for like 4 years, and he brought it and gave it to us, and it's up in the studio now.
It was meant to be.
It was.
I think he's perfect for the role. How did you get him on board?
We called and asked if he would do it, and he was like, okay, yeah, sure, I'll come in. We had met him a couple times before that, and we were looking for somebody who sounded naturally positive. And we auditioned a whole bunch of really great actors, but when they would try to put on that positivity, it would sound just a little bit put on. And it sounded sort of like Pollyanna.
Trying too hard, a little too Pollyanna.
It sounded like it was compensating for something. And we was like, we need to find somebody who just sounds positive, somebody who is.
You
that
meet
way.
Al, that's him.
He's super positive.
He's just the most positive guy you ever want to meet.
And as soon as we heard his voice with the character, we knew that was the right combination.
How do you get the ideas for some of the catastrophes that befall Milo in the series?
We have a random catastrophe generator that we built. Runs on solar power. And, there you go.
It's really just sort of a matter of well, what's the worst that could happen? Let's think of that. If you were doing this, and what could keep this from running smoothly, and
we have an incredible team of creative people. I'd like to say that we have all the ideas ourselves. In fact, I should. Never mind that.
Yeah, we have all the ideas ourselves.
But we have really great guys, and it's the whole team. And when you need to brainstorm and figure out how to do something, there's a lot of people with really clever ideas. Some of the best stuff we have are things that I know I never would have thought of.
Yeah.
That come from somebody else, and
somebody pitches them, and that becomes part of the show.
Yeah.
Do any of them come from your own personal experiences?
I think everybody has drawn a little from their past for the shows.
We talked the other day about a couple of really bad road trips. I had a road trip from all the way across the country in the U.S. that involved the back passenger window of my car exploding for no reason into glass, and so there just was glass all over, and we didn't have time to stop and really get it all out, and then going into a rainstorm that stretched all the way across Texas, which is, I don't know, the size of the Soviet Union or something, and it's and then the car stopped working, all in one road trip. It was like everything that could go wrong at every part went wrong, and we had a great time on that trip. So, and I think that's what sort of the Milo feel is that things are going wrong, but it's sort of I always try to think of anything going wrong as a story I'm going to tell someday, and it'll be much funnier in retrospect.
And there's a funny line we draw about when you're working with all the writers and brainstorming. It has to be anything that can go wrong. It can't be impossible things going wrong. It can't kind of be...
It's not magical.
Magic. It's just... And so we have this very clear idea of when that crosses a line.
Yeah.
For something like cartoons where there really aren't any lines.
Yeah,
really,
sometimes we'll say,
it's like, no, that's impossible.
So how could this go wrong?
Yeah.
Well, and they were like, oh, well, it's just something that goes wrong. Yeah, but if you can have something that fantastical, we have to see how this happened. Yeah. In order, you can't just have, a satellite crash into them for no reason. We have to see what weird thing happened to make that a reality, or lightning striking isn't.
So that makes it clear to people that we do believe in aliens.
Yes.
Yeah, that's absolutely possible.
Is it ever challenging to come up with these ideas, or is it just fun?
It's a lot of fun, but it's also challenging. It's a really fun thing to do for a living.
It's hard work that makes you laugh.
Yeah.
It's not that it isn't, it's a lot of work, because it's more than just coming up with the ideas. You then have to fit them in to the story arc and the personalities, and it has to work and be believable for the characters. So there's a lot of massaging that, but when you get it right, it feels great.
You do a little bit of everything in this show. I think there's animation, voice acting, writing. What's your favorite part about working on a television
We're control
show?
freaks, aren't we?
Yeah, we're control freaks. Our favorite part is the entire crew bowing down to us every Monday.
Well, that's great.
I think my favorite, I think we're probably in agreement on this, is writing the songs.
Yeah.
We wrote 400 some songs for Phineas and Ferb, and we're at 50 or so on this one already. That's the part that feels the least like work, is we get together with guitars and make up a silly song in an hour.
That's great.
Yeah.
And you're kind of in your own world, and you don't have to think about anything else. And as connected to the process as it is, that process of writing the songs is also wonderfully disconnected. It's just a magical little place that's musical.
Yeah. How would you say the musical style of Milo Murphy's Law is different to Phineas and Ferb?
There's a very subtle difference in the songs that no one on screen is singing.
Yeah.
We've tended to try to make them a little poppier in that I was sort of analyzing pop music a ways back and figuring out what's different about pop music now versus 20 years ago. And it's really more just working within one groove and not trying to change things. It all ends up being
You're making it sound so
nerd.
Scientific and dry.
Yes, I sound like a music nerd, but we tried to start writing songs that way, starting with a groove rather than interesting chord changes. Really more just like let's find a groove and then make the melody change around the groove. That's more of an answer than I think you wanted.
And in this show, we have fewer opportunities for, say, squirrels in someone's pants.
Yes, which we did write a song called "Squirrels in My Pants" for Phineas and Ferb, which we haven't written anything about any kind of rodents in anybody's trousers
in any way
yet.
It is early
I'm not
days.
saying we won't. It's very possible.
But if we do, it'll be constructed much more like a modern.
Do you think there'll be a little crossover between the audiences of this and Phineas and Ferb?
Well, we've always said from the beginning, if you love Phineas and Ferb, you'll like this because it's still our sense of humor. It's different characters, different story arcs.
And we think of it as existing in the same universe, sort of the way the Marvel universe is all connected in the movies and the TV show and stuff. We think of it as like this is this universe that Swampy and I created, and Phineas and Ferb are over here and Milo's over here, and if we do another show, maybe it'll be over here somewhere, and so there's lots of little Easter eggs in the background for kids who are watching that they all find and immediately start talking about on Twitter.
There
and
were
stuff
some teeny little things that exist in both shows, really minuscule things that people found almost immediately after it came out.
Yeah, just little things in the background and stuff where people like zoom in and show this thing. It's like, look, it's a Love Handle T-shirt, which was like a band from Phineas and Ferb.
My favorite one is we put a periodic table on, and at the bottom we created a fictitious element called Pizzazium infinionite. And one of the guys had included it in the chart. And it was a day after somebody leapt on and went, I found the Pizzazium.
I like those little Easter eggs because those are the things that I always liked when I was a kid, finding little things that made me feel smart about a specific show.